Okay, I've officially started recording. So we just talked about, figuring out maybe things that Fox wants in the Falco Fox matchup from his perspective to sort of, create a game plan around. Um, let's see. Do you have any Falco Fox sets in mind, or do you just want me to pick a random one and then
Um,
run with it?
yeah, I'm down for you to pick.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll screen share right now. Let me know if you can see it.
All right. Uh, all right. Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. Um, Let's see. You could pick a mango set. Mango's always great. I'm honestly willing to pick any mango set. It's not that big of a deal. Maybe actually. Hmm. Maybe it'd be best to pick like 12 days ago. I'm kind of don't know. Let's watch this set. Super recent. Okay. Are you in and can see?
Yeah, I can see just fine.
Okay. Cool. So do you have any thoughts on like the Fox matchup, going into it, just so I have an idea of maybe where you stand or, what
Yeah,
you
for
think you
sure.
could work on, et cetera, et cetera.
Um, right now my current game plan is just like I'm trying to just fish for shines at early percent.
Hmm.
Um, and I kind of just like need to keep the fox at bay with lasers
Yeah.
and kind of bait out an approach if possible.
That makes sense. I think that's good. Low percents. Can't really use your down move. You don't really get
Yeah.
combos off of it, so fishing for shines is good. I'd like
Mm-hmm.
to add on that, but I think Falco backer is a really good tool as well. Is laser and shine to sort of like get him up to a percent where your moves actually start working,
Yeah.
right? Um, Other than that, I mean, yeah, pretty much. Do you have any other thoughts, or do you want to just go into it?
Um, No, I think once I get my shine, I kind of just I feel like I go into my flow state and my combo game just starts.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
for sure. Let's just start watching. I guess I'll sort of maybe just commentate over this in a broader sense, just to see, and you could, interject when you feel like there's something you do get, maybe something I say doesn't make sense, or
Yeah.
anything that makes you feel like you want to, have something to say.
Okay.
Um, yeah, yeah, this is already pretty fine. I think Bingo's doing a pretty good job being aware of like where Fox could be hitting.
Mm-hmm.
You could say pretty early on, him dashing forward here is pretty greedy since Fox, could just drop through or run off and he'll end up in a threat range. But he does a good job realizing and shielding, and he immediately like gives up all the space he needs to end up being safe again.
Yeah.
Um, I think that downer is probably pretty ill-advised. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
actually end up hitting that much in that position, especially since
Mm-hmm.
his laser didn't end up connecting.
Yeah.
So I think it ended up being pretty bad. Cool pressure. This is just normal stuff. This is a classic Mangoism. Whenever he's in the corner and like Fox is kind of pressuring him, Falco full hop, great way to avoid nearly everything Fox can do and also give you a chance to play pretty reactive, right?
Yeah.
Um, you know, there's just so many mix-ups Falco could play that are honestly pretty hard for Fox to interact with. And so you see, it's like a pretty, it's in your favor. And so you see SFAT's like, oh, I guess I'll jump up. Maybe I'll read something with that the Falco does, on his double jump, and then he just gets down in the face and starts
Yeah.
getting comboed. Hmm. This is something Mango does a lot that I don't actually agree with. But I think whenever his opponents are on like platforms, he like does a very bad job about not like approaching lasering into their direct threat range. So he does this approaching laser, he ends up right here, and it's like, where how can a fox on top platform like hit someone? And if you
Mm-hmm.
like, it's like, he could do run off fast fall attack, or he could do shield drop fast fall, and it's like almost all of his options end up hitting this exact spot right here, right? So it's like
Yeah.
he ends up putting himself in Fox's danger zone, and it's like, well, I don't, you don't want to deal with that. And so you see that he immediately needs to dash back, and it's like, well, if he kind of started the position from the position that he's dashing back to, which would be right here, it would end
Mm-hmm.
up being, he'd have more. he'd be more available to actually hit him for doing this down there. Like if he
Mm-hmm.
wasn't dashing back right now, he could probably be setting up more and end up actually dashing in a timing where he'd be able to, true whiff punish it instead of having to play like a mix up with approaching laser.
Yeah.
Um,
You mentioned things like a threat zone
yeah.
and or a danger zone and a threat range. I think for me personally, I have a hard time understanding what that means for Fox
Mm-hmm.
like specifically.
Okay, that makes sense. So you know, there's a so the way that I, just to start from the ground up, the way to find, threat range is the space that someone can cover unreactably, right? So it's like if a fox does like, you know, he does like a dash up smash and he dashes for maybe like 1 or 2 frames or whatever and he up smashes, you couldn't have reacted to anything that happened within that like range that lets you know that he would be up smashing. So that's what I would say. That's a part of his threat range because he could hit you completely unreactably, right?
All right.
And so unlike in the specific sense, depending on where Fox is on the stage, that changes what his threat range is. So if he's on the side platforms, generally the only way that he can hit someone unreactably is by dropping through the platform or running off the platform. If he jumps off the
Uh-huh.
platform, since he has to travel through the air, he goes up and comes down. It takes enough time to where you can actually react to him jumping and make a decision, right?
Okay.
So I don't necessarily count that in his threat range, but I do think that it's obviously you should play around it, et cetera. But it's like, you know, the definition slightly changes once we get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and another example of a position where like his threat range changes from like his normal one, quote unquote, is when he's in shield. When he's in shield, the only things you can really do are like full hop forward, which ends up being reactable if you're already spaced for it. Yeah, short hop forward, which is not that large since he can't actually dash because he's in shield, and then he has
Mm.
wave dash, like wave dash shine, wave dash up tilt, and that's like about the furthest he can go out of shield with
Yeah.
being able to hit you in an unreactable manner.
Uh-huh.
And I think once we like watch more, it'll be like Mango does this thing that maybe does a good job avoiding Fox's threat range, and we'll talk about what that specifically entails, or maybe Mango does a poor job playing around Fox's threat range. He ends up getting hit, and so you get to see examples of like when Fox is actually threatening Falco.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool. Oh wow. Um, goes for pressure. Yeah, Mango just went for a read. Makes sense. This is a similar thing to actually, or the same exact thing as what I was saying before, where he's sort of approaching lasers right into, the platform area where Fox could either be on the platform, maybe full hopping around it, and then it ends up putting himself right in Fox's threat range, right? Because it's like
Yeah.
now that Mango's on under the platform, Fox can now drop through, and again, this is right in Fox's threat range, right? If I want to think
Yeah.
of the platform threat range from where he's at specifically, the spots where you can't really tell that he'll like be able to do something to hit you are here, like exactly this diagonal angle, because he could shield drop and drift, in that direction. He could run
Mm-hmm.
off an aerial, so he has this space covered. So he essentially has this like sort of chunk of the platform that he can fully cover unreactably. And Mango puts himself exactly in that space, right? And so we'll
Yeah.
probably see the next, situation, Mango end up shielding, spot dodging, rolling. Oh, he tries to back here, and guess what happens? You're in Fox's threat range, you get clipped, and he ends up in a weird scramble because of it, right?
Yeah.
And so, even in a position where maybe Mango doesn't necessarily get hit for making a poor decision, because threat ranges, etc., he ends up
In an
even in
awkward
like
position.
an awkward position, and like when something random happens, it's pretty clear that now he just gets hit because he put himself in the Fox's threat range. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm, nice, good roll. Um, so I mean, in this position, Fox is like, it's in the corner. You're at 30. You get nared once. You might just die instantly, right? So you're trying to
Yeah.
play around that, and this is like the point where this is about the point where Fox is like, this is Fox's threat range, his full threat range from the ground, because
Yeah.
from around this range he could running shine, and it's completely unreactable. You can't like see him do the shine and know that he's running shine. You can only see that he's running, right? And so that is like somewhat unreactable in that sense, given his run animation's 13 frames and shine comes out 1. It like ends up being around your reaction time by the time the shine comes out. So it's like you can't really react to the fact that he's even doing a running shine effectively. If he does a nair, it is a longer action, but by the time the nair comes out, he'll probably be around here, and then he'll be able to hit you. And so like this is Fox's effective threat range, given that he'll be on the ground right now, right? Does that make sense? And so Falco has to, play around that, whether that's run up shielding, which Mango does, or it'd be up tilting in place, which could be reading the, running shine, or it could be full hopping, which kind of removes you from the plane that you're on with Fox and kind of makes him have to he can't actually directly hit you because, you're full hopping and you are just no longer on the same plane as him. So the way that the situation, ensues ends up being pretty different. And then, of course, Mango, once he gets to the point where it's like he's engaged in this mix-up, he's like, oh, I'm just going to roll. And it ends up working out because, SFAT reads him shielding, and then he rolls.
Okay.
Yeah, and then a great example of how Mango is still in Fox's threat range here. If, like, for example, after this roll, Mango decided to do, like, a downer in place, or maybe a turnaround up tilt, this is pretty similar to the exact range we were talking about before, right? So if he does one of those actions, it's pretty risky because Fox could just end up running up and like maybe whiff punishing him or hitting him, right? And so Mango does something that I think is really good and just sort of resets and takes center stage completely with this laser that makes him pretty safe. And there's nothing Fox could really do to hit him, given that he does that laser.
Yeah.
And he does approaching laser, which is all good and well. Nice mix-up. And so after watching that first stock, I think it was a bit. Mango likes to scrap a decent amount, so there's a lot of awkward positions that kind of came up, but I think when it ended up in a position where he could end up dying or maybe getting comboed really bad, he did a good job playing around Fox's threat range, right? There's the two spots we saw, both in the corner and once using center stage, and sort of playing in a safe way that, lets him act freely. Now, there's also the other spots where he did things involved in the platform specifically, where he did a poor job, interacting with Fox's threat range, or he'd put himself right inside of it, and then he'd have to play, more defensive than he probably would otherwise to, try not get hit.
Yeah.
Yep. And this is really good for Mango. He sets up the range where, like, if Fox gets hit by a laser, there's nothing Fox could do from this spacing other than Power Shield that can actually hit Falco in between him doing the two fastest lasers in place, which is exactly what happens. You see Fox tries to nair him, and it's like, nope, laser's already out by the time Fox would be able to, like, get there with a nair, right?
Yeah.
And so this is a great understanding of like the threat range given the situation. Laser obviously makes you positive, and so if you do double laser at this range, there's nothing Fox could do that's fast enough to hit you. Just nothing. Now he could power shield, and that like changes the situation, but that's his one option he has that like can function aggressively in this spot. Yep, and we see here he sets up the same exact spacing when he tries to space around SFAT potentially. Like after this downer, he could wave dash forward, he could full hop, he could wave dash back. So he sets up a similar spacing, and then it ends up being pretty good when Fox full hops to try and avoid or get around Falco.
Yeah.
And then he's well spaced for the full hop, and then he gets to decide maybe I want to play mix up, maybe I don't. And then I think he does a pretty good job playing safe and also timing his next action pretty well. Goes for the Mango. Too far though. It's all good. Good corner pressure. Pretty hard for Fox to like. When Fox is getting lasered in the corner, it's pretty hard for him to like get out without kind of making his next decision obvious. Because you're Fox here, and you get lasered, you're like, man, I don't want to stay on the ground and get lasered. What if he just like, does an approaching down air? What if he, lasers in place? What if he does like an approaching laser shine or something? So you're like,
Yeah.
I'm going to go to the platform, but by going to the platform, it's pretty obvious that that's like your only clean escape other than going to ledge. So Mango
Hmm.
just kind of goes up there and hits him, and it's like he just gets clipped instantly.
Yeah. It's like he has to make that commitment, and it's just telegraphed
Yeah,
immediately.
it's pretty telegraphed because if he's not on the ground and he's not on ledge, where else is he going to end up being, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a big part of this position. From the Fox's perspective, it's like you really it's super uncomfortable being in the corner against Falco like this when he's shooting lasers. So you end up making
Hmm.
decisions that end up being pretty bad. Where it's like maybe you get hit by this lasers Fox and you decide I'm going to running shine the center stage. That just gets hit by Falco doing any aerial in place, right? So that makes the
Yeah.
risk reward pretty bad. Or it's like I'm just going to go to side platform, but it's pretty obvious that you're going to go to side platform because it's your like best risk reward thing to do because it kind of
Hmm.
disengages you from the situation and lets you plan a different plan from Falco, meaning that his lasers don't actually work, right?
Okay.
Um, so Mango gets that. Does a pretty bad edge guard, but it's fine. Oh, nice. This is good for Mesfat. Falco in the corner against Fox, another very good position for the other spacey. It's really hard for Falco to like make up this space and like get out without getting pressured by Fox. And Mango's like, I'm just gonna, I'm gonna down air. Down air's a big move. It protects me, and I'm gonna try and like, inch my way in. But Fox Bear just destroys it, and
Yeah.
SFAT gets his like great opening. And I mean, back air in general, not even just in the corner specifically, but as a general move against Falco, is super duper good. It's
Hmm.
probably one of his hardest moves to deal with. So I think if we're going to go back to maybe Fox's perception of the matchup, a big way that he'll end up playing it is turning his back to Falco and sort of like, you know, inching his way in with like maybe full hops or, double jumps to top platform or like dash forward pivot shield and sort of inching towards Falco while also having his back turned to cover, the more horizontal space.
Hmm.
And as Falco, you kind of just have to do a good job maybe lasering him out of the air or like barely avoiding in a back air and then maybe taking center with like maybe full hop or roll or
Yeah.
you just have to you can't really directly beat it other than whiff punishing it with downer sometimes. And there's some wave dash back shine positions that end up working out, but generally you just need to play evasive with it and like let the Fox kind of hang themselves when they overcommit, maybe by drifting too far or something like that.
Hmm. So in general, is it just difficult for Falco to scrap with Fox?
Yes, it is
Okay.
pretty difficult. I think Fox, because Fox and Falco have a lot of the same moves, right? But has a faster jump squat. So since he has a faster jump squat, if you guys end up playing a situation out and you're say actionable at the same time, Fox's action will just win every single time, right?
Hmm.
And so with that, it's pretty hard for Falco to actually win scraps against Fox a lot of the time. Now, I think if Falco sets up like a scramble on his like of his own will, it ends up being pretty good for him because Fox is like defending, right? But
Yeah.
when they're both like fully actionable and both kind of making a raw decision, Fox generally tends to end up on top. As well as when Fox sets up the position, Falco's defending. It's really hard for him. So generally, I
Okay.
think Falco's not that great in scraps against Fox. Mess up his tech side B. And from the Fox perspective, it's kind of been happening the entire game, but we kind of see how SFAT's spending a lot of his time on the platforms, right? And just
Yeah.
kind of, not letting Falco hit him easily. And this kind of, I mentioned it once, but it's like the concept of being on a separate plane as Falco, right? When you're not
Hmm.
on the ground, his lasers don't actually work, right? And that's
Yeah.
like the one way that Fox maybe gets to interact with Falco in a more like in a less laser sensed way, right? He can't like he doesn't have to do take laser things to get in. He doesn't have to do like power shield things to get in. He could, avoid Falco pretty easily and then maybe end up getting close to him, close enough to a point where Falco's like, okay, Fox could hit me. I have to, respect his options. And so we'll see from SFAT, he'll probably jump to top platform eventually. And then now it's like, now this is a spot where Falco's like, oh, Fox could hit me, because we talked about platforms he could drop through and he could run off, and those are kind of his unreactable actions. And then he runs off, and Mango's like, oh, I have to shield because he's in Fox's threat range, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think this is a pretty good example of scrambles like ending up going in Fox's direction. So it's like Falco clips him with a soft bear. It doesn't really do anything. And then Falco's shine isn't big enough to like super consistently hit Fox during like roll startup or like maybe even just standing. And so Mango's forced to, do other options. But then it's like he lasers a shield and it's like, or he lasers the shield point blank and it's like, what is Falco going to do that makes Fox scared? And Fox just gets a shine on the shield because, his actions are just faster. And then it ends up like, he's getting shot into the corner and it could be bad. Or even in like this position where it ends up being kind of a scramble because SFAT power shields and gets pushed back, but it's like, it's really like Falco isn't that good at actually hitting Fox directly in this position. Like once this happens, it's like Fox does this jump shine on the shield and he's double jumping, and it's like it's pretty hard for Falco to actually hit him for doing like any of those actions. So even in the scramble that Falco like sets up and maybe is advantage compared to Fox, it's hard for him to get any real value. So you see Mango like backs up and tries to read him like maybe wave dashing forward or something, and it's like he can't like cover everything that well, and it's not actually like that scary for Fox. And now they end up in this position where Mango's actually in lag under Fox in his threat range, right? He could shield drop and drift right there. SFAT reacts poorly, so he doesn't do it, but he did have to like be scared of it.
Yeah.
Again, lasering under the platform, which I think is pretty bad. Yeah, in this corner position, pretty hard to hit Fox directly, and then SFAT does a pretty good job like avoiding Falco. Once he's in this position, he goes to side platform, and once it's at this point, it's like Falco can't really hit you without taking a big risk, right?
Yeah.
And so then once he's on the side platform, he kind of resets completely. And that's Mango's like, oh wow, you did that weird kind of laser thing. I'm going to try and pressure you. But, he ends up getting close, ends up being awkward, and SFAT has time to full hop, and he just goes completely over the Falco, and then he, starts getting pressured, and ends up being pretty not good for him. Oh, that was pretty greedy, but it worked out.
When you say greedy, do you mean like he's trying to force an interaction?
Yeah. So if you look at this spot, I feel like there was probably no way SFAT got to this like Mango on the side platform teching fast enough to like actually get a true punish, but he goes for this like that bear anyways, and then it ends up being like this pretty awkward position afterward because he kind of just like forced it, if we want to define it that way. So yeah, that's kind of why I think it's greedy. Here goes Mango doing a really good job playing around Fox's threat range. Once he's out, it's like Fox is still, we talked about his furthest running shine length. This is around that spot, and Fox can still, like, doing other options, still pressure Falco, right? So Mango's like, oh, I am not fully out yet. So he does a really good thing and does, a dash back, drift all the way back laser, and ends up, at the edge of Fox's effective threat range.
Yeah.
Which I think is really good.
That's crazy awareness.
Yeah. And you see how even though SFAT did the one, this is the furthest move, like furthest forward moving action he could have done, and it just he's right outside of it, right? So
Yeah.
super good awareness. Nice. This is good invincibility play from Mango. I think the shield was pretty bad, but um, the way he played it before he shielded and after he shielded was good. Crossing Fox up, good, and then moving away, then going to top platform is all good. Oh, again, the bad lasers. And it's like he just goes right into Fox's threat range. There's like you can't like doing this is like something will go wrong. And now he's
Mm-hmm.
shielding a Fox bear, and it's like, what if the Fox like does a random drill or shine or something? Oh look, he drills and he gets hit, right? It's like
Yeah.
it just hits. It's so like once you're in that position, you're really disadvantaged. It's really
Mm-hmm.
hard to like actually play it out as Falco.
What are those lasers under the platform supposed to cover, anyways? It's just,
It's just to
just.
read them dropping through.
Mm-hmm.
He's just reading them dropping through at like a timing. And so he thinks that maybe if he gets to read, he'll get like, a laser shine or something. He'll get like good value. But I think it's honestly pretty not that good risk reward. I don't know if it's definitely not something that I'd use like 4 times a match. I'd probably use it like maybe like 2 times over the course of like maybe entire set because it's like really it's high risk and it's like the reward is good but inconsistent. And so
Uh-huh.
sometimes you'll like not actually get like a death combo off of it or something. And so I don't know if it's not something that I'd actually use that often unless I'm truly sure that they're gonna drop through the platform. Oh, I tried to wave dash back out of the range. That sucked. Oh, don't die
Oh,
here. Oh, okay, he's like, he's fine, he's fine. Um,
that was silly.
yeah, good shield from Mango, and he rolls away. Nice. This is like good awareness of like when Fox should hit. He knew that like after this laser, he didn't have time to actually move away from Fox because his like threat range is pretty big with full hop, right? And so he's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'll let you hit my shield, and then I'll like roll away, right? And he rolls away, and he realizes he's not completely out, so he does a laser thing, and then he sees that SFAT jumps to the side platform instead of trying to hit him directly, and he's like, I still can't stop him, and I'm like able to get hit because it's the threat range thing. And so he does a
Yeah.
good job rolling away. And then again, he's like, I'm not completely out of Fox's threat range and safe. So he does another like dashback laser that, and like all of that is like he's avoiding Fox because Fox could potentially hit him in any like of these positions.
Mm-hmm.
SFAT messes up and gets comboed. Yep. And from SFAT here, once he like gets out of the sequence with like the wave dash back, he's like, and he wave dashes forward. It's like his goal in making a decision like this is to hit Falco before he can set up a laser, right? That
Mm-hmm.
that's like his main goal. And now by doing that, if Falco does other defensive decisions like shield or maybe roll, if Falco shields, he ends up pressuring Falco, and it's the thing that we talked about before, where it's like when Fox is close to Falco on his own terms, it's generally a pretty good position for him because he outpaces Falco a lot of the time. So Falco
Yeah.
kind of has to take the pressure or like decide to move away if Falco or Fox does it well. And
Mm-hmm.
then if Falco rolls out of the way and he does the snare, then it's like it's you just kind of trade positions and it's not that big of a deal, and you kind of get to just continue to play neutral from there.
Okay.
And so when you see Mango doesn't make any of those decisions, it kind of decides to dash dance, maybe assuming that SFAT wouldn't do this because it is a mix-up. He just kind of gets hit because this is Fox's threat range. He's dangerous here.
Yeah.
Oh. And the platform here is really good. Mango moves back, gets out of the way. All pretty good. Oh. Even in this position where it's like Mango definitely meant to get close to SFAT. It's just like,
Mhm.
maybe he waved that shine or waved that short shine, he kind of misjudged and he's close, and now it's like this position's so bad for Falco. It's so hard for
Mhm.
Falco to like effectively like get out of this position once he's kind of in. Um, keeps reading the roll. That's really funny. Oh,
Oh.
what happened here? Did he? I think he just messed up and got clipped. Yeah, he just dropped shield for sure. Um. Okay, so I think we talked about a good amount of stuff in the first match, but we could, sort of recap. So, I guess I want to know your thoughts first. Do you have any thoughts on what we just watched and talked about, and then we'll go from there?
Yeah. One thing I definitely noticed was Mango's defensive play around like just spacing it in and out of SFET's just threat range.
Yeah.
Just it was really good awareness from him, and I feel like I have a little bit more of an understanding of like what Fox can do to just beat me up, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yeah.
And that makes sense. I think I agree. Mango did. He was aware in the spots and did a good job, actually, like moving out of the way of like
Hmm.
Fox's things when maybe he was actually getting threatened. Do you have any
Yeah.
more thoughts, or is it my turn?
Yeah, there were some situations where um Birdo kind of just because of his awareness around like Fox's threat range, he would just like he would just give SFAT that space.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me personally, I'm not good at that yet because uh, frankly, I'm like the way I see myself, I'm kind of selfish and I'm always trying to like take space,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that just m- creates like a super hyper aggressive style where Falco might not succeed all the time with
Yeah.
that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely something to keep in mind for me.
Yeah. That makes sense. I agree. I definitely think when trying to play aggressive or play spots kind of more with the intention of ending up getting a hit. Obviously, it ends up being a bit more inconsistent just because your opponent also has more opportunities to hit you. And
Hmm.
I think that given kind of what we talked about with Falco maybe not being the best at playing out these you know close range positions against Fox super effectively, um, uh, there's definitely a lot of value to be had in maybe taking your time more, trying to specifically lock Fox down. Because I think once
Hmm.
you get your laser stuff going and Fox has to deal with that, that's when your game starts. And that's kind of what we
Yeah.
see when we watch Mango is a lot of the time Mango wants to be aggressive and he does something aggressive, but almost every single time, I think every single time he decides to be aggressive, there is a laser before it, right? SFAT's on the
Yeah.
ground getting hit by a laser. And so that's like just from that information alone, I think it's pretty clear that like, and I'm sure you feel this way too, where it's like Falco is able to be aggressive, but he needs to have a laser to actually back it up, because otherwise, if we're talking in terms of Fox and Falco both doing things at the same time, Fox is
Hmm.
faster, so it'll end up going poorly for him. So once he
Yeah.
locks down Fox, that's when Falco is able to actually do his things, even though he's slower.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and for my thoughts, watching the match, I agree with everything you said, and there's a few things that um also ended well, pretty much the things that we talked about, where it's like there are the spots where you end up in Fox's effective threat range, and there's an extra bit of information with those is he can hit you, so you want to kind of move out of the way and play defensively. But I think in a lot of the spots where Mango ended up moving away, it was a position where or a spot where him moving back didn't actually give up any position if Fox didn't move forward, because Fox doesn't always have to move forward in those spots, right? And so a lot of the
Hmm.
times we saw it's like Fox is maybe under the side platform, maybe closer to center, and Mango does like a dashback laser, right? And he doesn't end
Yeah.
up in the other corner. He still ends up in center stage, right? But he's able to both defend against, Fox moving forward by, moving
Mhm.
himself back and putting on a laser. And also, if Fox doesn't move forward and he stands still, then he's still pretty close to center and doesn't have to actually fight for it.
Yeah.
Um, do you want to continue watching and maybe we'll focus on other things, or do you want to like maybe? Oh, what do you want?
Um, I'm not really sure. Uh,
hmm
um, yeah, let's continue watching. I haven't really like done a dissection like this
hmm
like properly before with such mindful analysis.
Yeah, I'm gonna. A set came to mind that I actually think could be good. This is a really old set. Since I just saw an FD game coming up, I want to watch this FD game because I think it's actually pretty good.
Hmm.
This is not what I meant to click on. What the heck? This is what I meant to click on. Okay. Let's go. Uh, Even we're watching this set, and this is the range where Fox could potentially move forward, right? This is
Yeah.
kind of his effective threat range. Now it's nerfed because Falco has a laser out, so Fox is disadvantaged. But even still, Direct Fox gives up the space and like
Hmm.
kind because it's like it's this thing that I talked about before, where it's like even if Fox didn't like move forward, him moving back doesn't actually give up any advantage, right? Since he still ends up in
Yeah.
center stage, and since he wasn't actually on top of Fox, he wasn't that advantaged in the first place. So the
Yeah.
position ends up being, similar value. And we see here with how kind of he sets up maybe a read that he wants to go for. This is all playing around Fox's threat range, right? Now that he's shielding,
Yeah.
he can't wave dash. Like, if he wave dashes forward, he hits this spot. His full hop really only covers, like, goes to around right there. So it's like,
Yeah.
he doesn't have that many moving forward options. And so, Direct Fox, wave dash back shines this spot if he does wave dash. And then when he full hops, since it's a slower option than wave dash ends up happening, is it would fall into the bear. So he has to, defend himself with a double jump. And then during all of this, Direct Fox is like, actively spacing himself at the edge of Fox's like threat range. So he drifts
Uh-huh.
away with the bear and he lands right here, which is slightly further with where it was before. And then you see how when the Fox lands, he actually lands right behind him, right?
Hmm.
So this all of these like plays that he's making, it's like he reads wave dash forward, he covers the full hop, he drifts away and he covers the double jump, not hard covering it, but he spaces himself for the double jump, I should say. And all of
Yeah.
these things happen, and then he puts himself at the good spacing for once Fox has landed with his laser, right? So
Hmm.
he's made like 5 decisions, and within all of these decisions, it's been pretty clear that he's like very actively playing around Fox's threat range.
Yeah.
And then we even see right here, he starts dash dancing. He wave dashes down. This is the spot where Fox hit him, and he goes for a read because he wants to hit his opponent or whatever. But yeah, all of these things are like pretty. It's pretty clear that he's like aware where Fox could hit him, right? And he's
Yeah.
playing right at the edge of it to try and maximize his value. God, the quality is so ass.
It's a product of its time.
Yeah, most certainly. Cool lasers. And you kind of see how the threat ranges do change depending on like what each character's doing. So since
Hmm.
Falco's double jumping, Falco's threat range isn't actually really that great when double jumping. So it's like he could come down with a downer at best right here without fast
Yeah.
falling, and then you could laser. And so Silent Wolf's like, oh, I know that he doesn't have that many options, so I'm just gonna run up shield and deal with laser, and also have like a decent, like not a great position, but like if he down airs, I'm fine, right? And so he gets
Hmm.
to run a power shield, and then Sammy is like, oh, I need to get out. I could get hit here, so he rolls back, and then the position kind of resets.
Uh-huh.
And once he rolls back, he probably sees that Fox full hopped and is like, oh, Fox can only be in so many places, after he full hops. He could double jump, which changes the situation, but he's like, there's no way that, he assumes that he'd be more aware than Silent Wolf in this spot. So he's like, I'm going to approaching laser, and then what ends up happening is Fox has to dash back because, Falco, he's in Falco's threat range, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that was really good.
Wow.
Yep, the full hop, Falco's full hop goes over Fox's full hop. And since he did it like preemptively as a read, I'm sure he probably, like, Silent Wolf probably full hopped on reaction to Falco jumping in general. He probably couldn't tell if he had, full hopped specifically, and then it ends up lining up perfectly to where he gets the laser and they land at the same time. And so he gets a lot of advantage in this spot where he's really close to Fox. And this is kind of what I'm talking about, where once you get the laser out and you're close enough to Fox, that's when you start to get, you start to be able to make decisions. So he gets into this approaching laser that, like, totally makes sense because Fox, is threatened by Falco, doesn't want to get hit. And so he's like, I'll dash back, and then, like, I'll be fine if the Falco does a laser in place or does an approaching aerial. But, part of the mix-up is Falco potentially approaching lasering here. So he ends up getting, an approaching laser shine.
Yeah.
That's all pretty good. Good combo. And this is pretty similar to what Mango did. He knew that he went for this down tilt, which maybe might have hit, maybe wouldn't have hit. It wasn't really, but he realizes, oh, I could get hit by Fox here, roll back, right?
Yeah.
And then after this downer, it's like, I could get hit by Fox here, laser, and he sets up the new spacing, right? It's always like the way that, like, Falco really gets, the way that Falco plays this matchup is he's always just, like, attempting to be at the edge of Fox's effective threat range and make Fox have to deal with lasers, right? And I like FD for looking at Falco doing this because it's like, this is the baseline, right? And I think if you can't do it on FD well, then you probably won't be able to do it on the platform stage as well when there's, like, a ton more information that you have to deal with because, he could jump to side platform. Yeah. So it's, like, super duper clear that in all these positions, that every single time Falco's doing anything, it's always right there, right in front of Fox. Fox can't do anything about it, right? Nice. Really good. This is great awareness, too. After doing this down air, he sees the Fox running forward, and he's still like, oh, I am still, at threat of getting hit. I have to defend myself. So he does a dash back bear, and it does a good job stuffing out, Fox doing a running shine. Oh, that was a good drill. But even it's funny, he stands still, right? Because he knows this is the space that is the good space to be in. It's super clear that this is, like, the edge of Fox's, like, his range, and it lets him react super well. Because if it's reactable at this point, then the way you play the situation changes. Oh, nice. That's really good. Yeah, nice. Full hop, super broken. Fox even clips it, and it's like, soft air, who cares? Go back to neutral. And then he ends up getting reversaled because he, like, overcommits.
Yeah, definitely.
Damn, and he just got comboed to death because of that.
I should definitely, like, try out more full hops in my gameplay.
Yeah, full hop. It's super good to just, like, avoid the Fox. Whenever there's a spot and you're like, man, I am scared I might get hit, you truly could just full hop, and it will, like, end up going pretty well. Oh, wow, that was super good. He wave dashes, and then he knows that he's full hopping. He's going to land with an aerial, so he just spot dodges and shines him. That was
wow.
super sick.
Oh. I would never have caught that.
Yeah, I was like, well, wait, hold up. How do you get a spot dodge shine in this position? What happened? No, he just he reacted to the full hop, wave dash, and just, like, read that he'd land with an aerial and just got him. Super
That's
good.
crazy.
Super duper good. That was really, really bad. I wish it didn't go into 2P once he starts dashing away, but now he knows that, he's in the death range. Fox should hit him, so he dashes back. And then
Yeah.
he dashes far enough back to where even if, oh god, there's pixels, but if Fox full hops, he's still outside of it, and then he plays it effectively. I wish it was in more than 1P, but
Yeah. So it's Renaissance art.
yeah, yeah, most definitely. Oh, nice.
Make out the shapes though, it's fine.
Yeah, yeah, we'll work it out. Nice, good up tilt. Man, he is like literally four stocking him,
Yeah.
and is he's done a very good job actively playing around like Fox's like capabilities.
Yeah, he's just like winning every interaction just because of the awareness
Yeah,
of like just threat range.
nice.
Wow, yeah.
Yep, right here it's like he sees the Fox double jump, and it's like how many places can Fox end up when he double
Yeah,
jumps,
yeah, yeah.
right? And he just dash dances right outside of it and gets easy grab. Same thing here.
Mm-hmm.
Right after this, he double jumps out, and it's like, where is he gonna go? What can he do? Dash dance, grab him. Nice.
Yeah.
This is great too. Right outside. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
He grabs ledge well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that game. It was like he beat him up pretty badly.
Yeah.
And all the like threat range stuff that we kind of talked about was made super clear. And there's obviously things that he does specifically within those ranges that makes the decisions good, and whatever. But at the baseline, we have to establish like what is possible. And I know that we kind of started off maybe talking about like Fox's perspective, but I think
Mhm.
when we talk in terms of threat ranges, that like ends up being general enough to both cover Fox's intentions, because it's like if you're in the spot where Fox could hit you, it's
Mhm.
you will have to play around that regardless of whether the Fox intends to hit you or not,
Yeah.
right? So I think it ends up, even though maybe it wasn't that much talking about the Fox's perspective and what he wants to do, to
Mhm.
deal with you. I think if we look at it in terms of like in each given situation, what are the current threats at hand that you can't, reactively deal with? And there
Yeah.
will be times when you reactively can deal with things too. But given that, what are the things like the ways that we could play it out? And you know, it ends up covering a lot of like the Fox's perspective thing, just because
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it just hits it all, because if Fox's perspective or the things he wants to do has to fall into his threat range, or it just ends up not being that good of an option if it's like fully
Yeah.
reactable.
Yeah. I totally get what you're where you're coming for that.
Yeah. um so those are the two games I have to show. I think that after watching them, I one thing that we could do is um I'm not sure how you feel about this, but we could like connect and then maybe talk about various positions that come up in Fox Falco more specifically, so we could finish off with that. Since we talked about threat ranges generally, we could work into maybe be a bit more specific in positions that maybe you struggle with, well connected to each other or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds great.
Nice. Let's see, let me open up my dolphin. um okay. Okay. What is your connect code?
Nemo 542. That is NEMO.
NEMO 542. Okay.
Yes.
Hashtag 542. And I'm Billy hashtag 0. Okay, let's go to Battlefield. Just okay. So, I guess to preface all the things I want to talk about, I kind of want to create the baseline of like, you know, because I did talk about the spot where if Falco lasers in place twice, Fox can't do anything to like hit him, and that's kind of like what we're gonna base all of kind of what we're talking about from. So
Yeah.
I think it's about this range. So just laser in place twice if you can, as fast as you can. That should have the laser should have hit me. But you see how like even in this range, this is about the range where if you know you laser twice and I like nair forward, my nair will get caught right here. Or if you laser twice and I try and run forward, I'll get caught, you know, somewhere from here to here before I can like actually hit you, right?
Yeah.
So this is like the baseline for where all of like, this is both the place where Fox goes to where he wants to, if he wants to hit you, because he tries to get closer than this spot, and this is like what you're trying to stop Fox from getting to. You don't want to let Fox get to this range.
Yeah.
Right? So we could essentially, everything starts from there, and so a good thing to like look at is if Fox isn't right there, what are the ways that he could do to get there? And so things that Fox could do to get to that range are like, you know, run up, right? And so if you're like lasering from back here, I could do like run forward to try and get to that range when you do a second laser, right?
Yeah.
Or I could use platforms and then jump off platforms, or like run off platforms and do an action to like try and make that range come up. Or I could, you know, jump to top platform, drop through, something like that. And so from Falco, it's your job to like try and play around these things effectively. So it's like, if you're like standing in center stage and you laser the Fox, you could be like, oh, he's gonna laser forward, I'm gonna, you know, laser in place twice, or he's gonna dash forward, I'm just gonna laser in place twice, and if he dashes forward, I could obviously see that and change the way I play the interaction, whether it's to like, you know, do a dash back laser in place again, or do like laser, you know, dash forward, drift back drill, or like laser there in place, right? Or, you know, you do these two lasers, and you do like a laser, and I decided to jump to side platform, you have to like be able to see that, you know, because I think you doing the two, so the big part is that when you do these two lasers, it's kind of like a queued up action, right? You can't react between the first laser and the second laser, but by the time that the second laser's out, you could see that if Fox got hit by the first laser, he dashed forward, or if Fox got hit by the first laser, he jumps to side platform, or if he gets hit by the first laser, he shields after it, or whatever. You could see that by the time you're done with the second laser. Does that like intuitively we could try it here to see how you feel about it. Right. By the time that you're done, and there's a little bit of time after that, but you could be able to see that I have like jumped to the side platform, or I have jumped, or I've dashed forward, or maybe so that is like the baseline. And so from this position, you should, you know, if I dash forward, you could either, you know, downer in place or do dash back laser. Downer in place is good to stop me from just running forward, or, you know, doing dash back laser is good if you're not sure if I'm going to run forward, but you kind of want to give yourself space and like be safe, right? And then maybe the situation changes from there. Maybe the spacings end up being the same. Who knows? And then, if I like, you see me jump to side platform, your job is to like stop me from being able to jump off like that for free. Right? This is kind of what you need to do. So once I'm on there, what you could be doing is you go to this point, which is pretty much the furthest point that Fox can reach, and be like lasering here, or you could be dash dancing here and see me jump off and decide to do like a back air or something to stop me, right? It's like, oh, that you could see that I jump and like make a decision, right? And maybe sometimes you'll need the shield because we're too close. Maybe, you know, but this is the core threat that you need to like deal with. And you can react to me jumping and make a decision. And now it's a mix-up whether I decide to drift fully forward, or whether I decide to, you know, drift back, or whether I decide to jump to top platform. And you'll have to, you know, map out those situations and kind of figure them out yourself. But pretty much the core of Fox Falco involves when you like stopping Fox from getting to this range. This is a spot where you have to, this is where he can hit you completely unreactably, and you want to stop him with lasers / you know, using your movement, using your moves to stop him. And that is where pretty much everything we talked to talked about comes up. So, um, and then we could talk about, since we only have like 5 minutes left, we could talk about platform interactions in a little bit of depth. Pretty much, Fox on side platform. I think unless you're reading him going up, it's pretty bad value to try and jump up there with him. It's like, it's just you'll end up getting shield drop shined or shield grabbed or shield drop bared or something if you try and like jump shine him or something if you don't have a read. So I guess when Fox is on side platform, his goal isn't to stand here forever. He just wants to get back to the ground safely. He only goes to side platform to avoid lasers, right? Yeah. And so once the lasers are done, or maybe you do something like a downer in place that's laggy, I'm like, oh, I get to come to the ground now and play neutral again. But before, when Falco is kind of dealing with him, trying to get back to the ground safely, you have to worry about all of this that range. So we talked about him jumping off or him going to top platform. These are things that you have to like be actively paying attention to and seeing if he does. So if he like short hops off, you have to, be like, oh, he short hopped off, I have to cover that. And then you could react, you could decide whether you want to read him landing from a short hop and maybe like downer is landing or approaching lasers landing or CC shine or shield, shield shine or shield shine, or you could play it super passively and not commit and continue like dash dancing here. And then if he double jumps to top platform, you end up being able to like play it in the most available way possible, right? But if he like decides to land and you're dash dancing, you need to know that you're like engaged into a mix-up, right? Yeah. Because, if you're dash dancing at the end of a set range and he lands right there, you need to be like, oh, Fox has landed next to me. He could like just nair, right? And that's like the baseline of the things you have to deal with defensively. Yeah. And then when Fox is on top platform, when I'm Falcon, the way I generally like to deal with it is like, I think that when he's up here, you want to end up like, you want to dash dance here, and then be like, maybe he'll drop through, so you'll like do lasers at timings where he could drop through, and then eventually you want to like, I think it's important to like move from this side, like side to side kind of, when trying to like deal with Fox on top platform. Because when he's on top platform, he's not like, oh, I get to come down for free now. He's like, I still have to like, he's engaged. Because what if you end up right here when he drops through, right? He drops through and you like, are down airing or you like jump shine him or something, right? So he still needs to be like, what's it called? Engaged with what's ever happening with the side platforms. And I think as Falco, it's really important to like move around from maybe here to here or like end up in center stage sometimes and actually scare him when he tries to come down. Because if like he comes down right here and you lasers landing on center stage, he's in a bad position again and he needs to reset it completely and try and get back to a spot where he's in a good position. Right. Okay. Yeah, and I think if you watch, players like Mango or Ginger, or Fiction, they'll all end up doing something pretty similar when Fox is just like kind of jumping around top platform. They'll be like, oh, Fox is on top platform, I guess I'll laser and read him falling through, and then if he doesn't fall through, they just kind of keep playing, and if he's like bound to like stay up there, sometimes they'll like cross the field and end up on the other side, or maybe they'll end up in center stage for a second to make Fox want to like, maybe drop down and hit them, and then they'll like go back to under the side platform to like end up like safe again, right? And from Fox, not all these things are reactable, and he's just trying to like find the safest path down, right? Yeah. And yeah, it's just your job to make it as hard as possible. I think that is all I have for like, the core of Fox Falco. This is the range that once Fox is in, he gets to do his thing. This is the range where you get to stop him with laser, your fastest laser in place. And then your goal is to stop him from getting into that range. And his goal is to get into that range, right? And so he'll use platforms, he'll use power shielding, and you want to like essentially build up from that basis.
You want to have like a solid defensive game in that regard where Fox is trying to get in.
Yeah. Falco's really good at stopping Fox from just getting in and doing Fox things. And your job as Falco, you watch Mango. Mango's, one of the players that people call the most aggressive Falcos, and he spends a lot of time just avoiding Fox because that's the matchup. Falco
Yeah.
has to stop Fox from getting to the point where he's on top of you and you're now just like eating pressure, right?
Yeah.
Um. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say. Do you have any thoughts on that? And we could wrap up.
No, I think that was good. It was like that wasn't enough for me to like think about and consider without getting like too overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Um. Uh. Yeah. If you have any, any questions about any of this stuff, or you feel like maybe something you like end up playing and you're like, well, this spot comes up and it doesn't make that much sense. I mean, you could always message me. You're welcome to, and then we could I could always talk to you specifically about the situations that happen in it and all this stuff, because we didn't get that into depth about all the specific mix-ups that could happen. But and I just kind of covered the baseline, but we always could if you have any questions, and then we could talk about it, and then it'll all be good.
All right. Yeah, for sure.
Nice.
All right.
Okay. That was a good time. I'm glad we talked. I feel like we covered a lot of like thing. I enjoy talking about the fundamental parts of a matchup a lot, because I feel like that's where a lot of the really cool things start to stem from.
Yeah.
So this is good. Okay. So I guess we're about finished.
All right. Cool.
Cool.
Thank you much.
Yeah, no problem. Have a good weekend. I'll talk to you
Yeah, you
hopefully
too.
next month.
Yeah.
Cool,
All right.
later.
See you later.
Yeah.